on France 24. Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France 24 debate. France polarized over the story out of the French Riviera city of Nice last Wednesday. A 67-year-old jewelry store owner held up when his assailants fled the jewelry store with the goods. He shot one in the back as he was making his getaway on a motorbike. With us to talk about it, our attorney Thibault de MONTBRIAL, who's represented over the past 5 years. How many jewelers have you represented over the past 5 years?
Maybe half a dozen.
Half a dozen. More? Would you say more and more?
Yes, including other shop owners or people who have to defend themselves or to face very violent. If you include those people who face very violent crime, yes, it goes high to maybe 20 in the last 5 years.
All right. Also with us, Philippe columnist for Le Nouvel Observateur, Marie-Cecile, NAVES, political scientist, whose focus is on the far right. We'll be talking a little bit later about the context of all the cyber activism we've seen around this case. And Cyril of the French National Crime Watch Observatory. Philippe was mentioning a moment ago the Oscar Pistorius case, how that's stirred images. What's brought up for some of the older members of the newsroom, you might say, memories of, was New York City in 1984. There was a big crime wave at the time. A man by the name of Bernie Goetz, who shot 4 would-be muggers on the New York City subway. It became a national story, as did the Tony Martin affair in Norfolk in Britain. Now, here with us at this point is France 24's very own James Crean. Let's go over and say hello to him.
Evening, François.
James, we began the show talking about those 1.6 million likes for a Facebook page in support of this French jeweler. And for France, that's, I guess you could almost say, unprecedented.
Certainly for a story of this kind, it's unprecedented, bearing in mind that that's in just 1 week it's garnered that many likes or supportive gestures on Facebook. Nicolas Sarkozy, for example, has about 800,000 likes on Facebook, a politician who's been building his reputation for quite some time. François Hollande, the current president, about 400,000 likes on Facebook. So that's just to give you an idea of what a huge amount of support this jeweler has got.
But there's been a bit of controversy.
Well, that's right, because the support is often expressing sort of unlawful sentiments, right? This is a Tumblr.
Over the numbers of the 1.6 million.
That's right. Some people suggesting that it could have been artificially boosted. You can buy likes on Facebook. It is an industry or a marketplace at this point. Others, well, according to the guy who actually created that Facebook page, who spoke anonymously to L'Express, he said, look, I've had no help whatsoever. I'm not affiliated to any political party. I'm just a simple student. Now, I would say if he's keeping his anonymity, he could be anybody or affiliated with anything, and he can say whatever he wants because we don't know who he is, right? But there was a lot of speculation that he or she could be affiliated to perhaps a far-right party. A lot of the media have been saying as well that, for example, this is Bloc Identitaire. Now, they're further right than the far-right party,
right than the
National Front. Okay. And they're saying defending your business is not a crime. So, certainly I think the far-right did benefit from this debate. Now, this is a blog garnering together some of the comments that appeared on Facebook supporting the jeweler. Just to read out one of them, François, it says, "You threaten me, you steal from me, you take a bullet, tough luck." So I think that's kind of representative of the sentiment that was coming across on Facebook, i.e. just taking the law back into your own hands, essentially, and a high degree of support for that. Photos such as this also circulating on social media that says, "I support Stefan Turk and I liked the Facebook page."
I liked it.
That's exactly
English
it.
slipping into
borrowing
to the lingua franca there.
The French Academy would not be pleased.
No.
Now, you also had Facebook pages like this being set up, even more hardline again. I am for hanging in public places. Now, that's only had 31 likes, so it's not doing quite as well. Now, what else is there to point out? The Bijoutier de Nice.
Is everybody in favour? I mean,
no, definitely not. Actually, just to point out those who aren't in favour, some have been a bit tongue-in-cheek and set up a counter Facebook page. This is support for the rabbit who killed the to kill the hunter, right? So that's about 253,000 likes. So I think people are being a bit silly at this point. Now, an interesting point is that the jeweler is of Lebanese extraction and that the burglar or the robber was a native French origin. So some are speculating, for example, in Slate, that this is even giving the far right further, it's kind of giving them further scope to go as far as they want with this with this issue because they're not going to be accused of being racist or playing the race card. If it had been, say, a French jeweler and somebody of foreign origins, there's a risk that the far right would have been criticised for trying to benefit from this on a racial level, right? So that's just a look at some of the discussion online.
All right, a lot of food for thought there. Yes. I'm going to get the panel to react to it. Many thanks for that, James Creedon. And I'll start with you, Marie-Cecile Naves. Your thoughts on this? The head of the National Front says she's flatly denied that she has anything to do with that Facebook page.
Yeah, maybe she personally doesn't have anything to do with this Facebook page.
Or her party, she said.
Well, we don't really know how many false likers there are in this event.
The mayor of Nice, who said he clicked several times.
Yeah, it's not surprising.
He's conservative, but he's not far right.
He's
having a think about that
he's
one.
a conservative, but he looks sometimes at the radical right.
It's getting harder to distinguish between the conservative and the far right nowadays.
For some people,
increasingly it's difficult.
Yeah, for some people in the UMP, it's very difficult. The radical right has found in the internet a perfect place to express itself. And you have the bloc identitaire or anything, and social networks, Twitter, Facebook, and the commentaries you can write on online newspapers are full of radical right comments. So I'm not surprised that this page on Facebook has such a success. Probably it would have been worse if the robber hadn't been right. Probably it would have been worse. But
right, Thibault de MONTBRIAL, what are your thoughts on this page?
Well, I don't do politics, and I surely don't know who is behind that Facebook page. But
did you click on it?
No. The only thing, I'm not on Facebook, so that I don't have temptations. The only thing I have to add to what is being said currently is that all those who think that the people who claim that to defend yourself when you face death is extreme right thoughts are making a big mistake, and it will be it's a big mistake that can lead to increase extreme right, and I would be very sorry for that. But so you have to keep your head cold and ask yourself if you're an observer, a journalist, or a politician, and understand that something is going on in that country about resisting violent crime, and that there's a huge wave. It didn't start last week. I have a lot of clients who've been telling me for years that enough is enough, and that maybe they were considering the fact that they would have to defend themselves. Even the police force feel that and is worried about that. So there is something going on in that country, and you cannot just resume it and to extreme right questions. It's not the point.
There's a political hijacking you cannot avoid.
Maybe.
On that point, the front cover of today's edition of Libération, the newspaper saying it's suspicious of what's happened. Hate on the network of hate is the I guess how you would translate that cover. Already last Sunday, the Journal du Dimanche headlined "The Crime That Helps the National Front," with a front page picture of the far right's longtime leader Jean-Marie Le Pen. There you see him. His daughter Marine today leads the party. By the way, she addressed the fateful Sunday, and she singled out the attention given to all the gangland murders that we've witnessed in the nearby southern city of Marseille.
There is no Marseille exception. There is only a Marseille precedent. All it takes is reading the back pages to see the criminal gangrene that is bit by bit infecting the whole of France. Today, even the countryside and the rural towns aren't spared. Whether Mr. Valls likes it or not, the figures speak for themselves, even though he is trying to silence them. And the violence appears to be becoming street terrorism, of which the aim is to steal or kill, but also to terrorize the population before subjugating it.
Philippe, there's important point Thibault here made that you can be in support of the shopkeeper without being far right.
Yeah, you can, but you're reinforcing the far right. This is
so what you're forced in that case to
I think there is a huge wave. We agree on that, but that's a political wave, and that's a far right wave, and that's not. Let's talk about it with a cold mind. I mean, if we look coldly at what happens in our country, all those likes on Facebook, they didn't come from nowhere. They're coming because there is a national debate, whether we want to have it or not, and this national debate is about the right, and the right going to the far right.
Is it about that, or is it? Or, wait a minute, Philippe, are we reading too much into this? Because you're a politics junkie inside here in Paris.
No, that's
isn't this more discussion? Isn't this more discussion just about crime? As
that's
just
not
about the fact
crime.
that people
that's
feel
about,
victimized by
that's
crime.
That's not about crime. That's about the relationship between a part of France who is on the right, on the more and more on the right, and the government. And the fact that this part of right, as in 1981 with the first socialist president, this part of France refused to have a socialist government. We have seen that during the anti-gay marriage movement. We see that now, and the fact is there is no clear leader on the right. Marine Le Pen is a very, very good politician. She's a very good leader for the right. She could be tomorrow the leader of the right, and there is a temptation on the right to have her as a leader. That's the basic truth about the politics now. That's something I don't like. Most people don't like it, but that's the truth. And dislikes on Facebook, maybe we don't want to see them. Maybe we dismiss them as something futile because that's on the internet, as Libération does, but I wouldn't dismiss them. They represent something.
Thibault de Montbrial?
Well, this wave of violent crime, or the feeling of this wave of violent crime,
is different from the facts.
No, but there is absolutely undoubtedly a fact. It didn't start when Mr. Hollande was elected. So I believe it has nothing to do with politics. But I'm not a politician observer, and even less a politician. What might be true, and I leave all those who are entitled to speak about it, and I'm not, is that there is what you just called a hijacking of the case by politicians on the extreme right. Maybe this is true, but my point is that the people who are exhausted by all that violence, the younger the guy gets when to go to violent crime, the easier way they have guns, the easiness with which they use the guns, and then they come in criminal court, and they weep and they say, "Oh, I didn't want it. I just took the gun to lead the guy to fear, and I didn't want to use it. I'm sorry." But it didn't start last year. It didn't start with the left at the power.
It didn't start.
It has nothing to do with the Parti Socialiste, to my view. It's absolutely not a political question.
It didn't start last year.
No.
However, if we try to take this debate to the cold facts, as you were calling for, Philippe. We see that the year-on crime statistics are even the subject of a partisan argument. Conservative daily Le Figaro, big headlines about year-on crime statistics from 12 months ago. To assaults up to 2.9%, sexual assaults more than 10%, damage to property 3.5%, robbery nearly 10%. Le Figaro really highlighting that in bold red letters. Again, I'm sorry, I get back to you, Cyril, to ask you. There's the perception and the reality. Is France becoming a more and more violent place?
That's not what the people we ask during the victimization survey we do every year answer us. So when we ask to the people, French people living in France, were you victimized by a violent crime last year or the year before? The rates are not going up for the moment, and we are expecting the next result during the month of December. So for the last year, we had a decrease of the people saying that they were victimized by a violent crime. But it was their own experience. We are talking now about shop owners being victimized during robberies. And we are talking about Marseille and killing every 2 weeks, which makes the headline of the newspapers. So people just have the feeling, but it's not a feeling because it's upon fact that nothing can be done to stop that because the jewelry robberies and the killing in Marseille have started for 3 or 4 years. So it's not something new.
So
actually.
the feeling that there's a downward spiral that can't be...
Nothing can
that
be
nothing,
done, and
nothing can be done.
as people were killed during robberies, you can accept the idea that the people are frightened to death. This is something like we can accept as an idea.
All right. Couple of your reactions, because a lot of you have been reacting on Facebook and Twitter. There's just no accordance between crime and punishment here, so you can't sympathize with the jeweler. That's one reaction. After various robbery incidents in Cannes and Paris recently, the jeweler had to defend himself, says Alexander. So you see contrasting reactions that we had from you on Facebook, and we're seeing another one. Good to see that Europe is finally embracing the need for gun ownership as a means of self-defense. Thibault de MONTBRIAL, do you go that far? Gun ownership? Yes?
This is a very complicated question. I think our countries in Western Europe have completely lost the ability to face legitimate violence, because it's been now 3 generations, and thanks God, that we live in peace. And families now have no more souvenir, no more living memory of what it is to face violence. So we our judges, our governance, they have themselves don't have that experience. So we don't know anymore how to face violent crime, and we don't have any gun history anymore. One thing I would like to say, which is very important, nobody knows that, but when in 1789, during the French Revolution, when 5 guys met together to write the Déclaration des droits de l'homme et du citoyen,
Declaration of Human Rights.
Yes, which is the base of our law. They decided...
End of the UN Charter.
And of the UN Charter. They wrote an Article 10, which is, quote, every citizen has the right to own a gun and to use it to defend himself or another citizen if threatened to death. And then they decided to take it away. But do you know what? Do you know why, sorry, they took it away and they didn't write it? Because they said, quote, it is so obvious that we don't need to put it in the Déclaration. History would have been different if they have kept it.
Society was more violent at that time. So it's, I heard that in France. I heard it on France 2. So it's your
television
media
station.
group. Yeah. That there were in France 3 million guns which were
Licensed?
licensed, and 20 million guns which were not.
I wonder what the
So
bad guys don't have license.
It's something very frightening, I think.
All right. Well, the Interior Minister himself has been weighing in on this conversation, and sorry to bring it back to politics here, but Manuel Valls, who's one of the more charismatic figures in the socialist government, he was on Breakfast Radio highlighting how those numbers are up over several years. He accuses, of course, the previous conservative government of laying off police officers. On the Nice jewelry heist and the subsequent shooting, here's how Valls summed up his thoughts.
This poses a problem for the whole of society, and it's a problem of authority.
Who's failing? The judicial system? The police?
It's simply society as a whole. It's not only the family, it's the school system, our society, and the capacity of the judicial system to better punish. This is why we are reforming the system with Christian Taubira, to prevent reoffending with better ways of monitoring those released from prison. So this matter deserves better than caricaturistic and sterile political disputes.
Sounds like a conservative MP. I mean, it's fascinating to see how his discourse is different from Taubira's.
But if he's sounding like that, it's because that's a popular message.
Yeah, sure. It's popular on the right. Maybe he should worry about what's popular on the left. He's on the left.
He's, according to the polls, most popular member of François Hollande's government.
He's been given the power, but he hasn't been elected by the citizens to such a position as president, for instance. He would have to face something different in his own party, at least.
But to the point that he's making, that there is something that has to be fixed for all of society.
It's a conservative view that all society is insecure, that all society is something of a tantrum we live in, and we have to fight against each other. That's
of course, there is the rejoinder that he's fixing.
That's, as you said, obs. That's a conservative view. That's very, very on the right. That's surprising from a socialist minister, to say the least.
Thibault de Montbrial?
No, I must agree with him. He's right. Crime doesn't exist.
Crime does exist, but we don't. Not every people. We are not afraid of it. I mean, not on a daily basis. That's.
If I can add
There are
some,
other things in life, hopefully, than crime.
if I can add something more seriously, I'm very astonished because as maybe some of you, I have children at school, and when police comes to school, to educate children, to say beware of such and such things, the only message they give is, quote, if something happens to you, don't do anything. Let it go and then report. But the problem is that our whole society has been used to let go when facing a problem and not to defend itself anymore. But there are cases in life when you just cannot let go. It's not possible. It's not the majority of cases, but it does happen sometimes. Sometimes you have to fight for your own life, and it's not a criminal offense.
If gun ownership had succeeded in the US, I would entirely agree with you, but it's a huge failure in the US, so it's not the solution.
If you want to go...
It's not like in the Bible, one eye for an eye.
If you want to go down that road, I have to say, it is not my personal opinion, but that in the States where the castle law doctrine has been set up and people can shoot whoever comes illegally in their home robbery has gone down.
I don't know about that.
Cyril RIZK, we can call up the numbers again. The issue of crime and the issue of how it's being perceived is brought up again. But it's also the issue of another reason, which is economical. Jewelry stores are particularly. There seems to be a correlation as well with the rise in the price of gold. That's something that's been talked about.
Gold is targeted in houses by burglars who look for jewelry in houses. They look for jewelry in stores, and it has started in 2008, and it's going up. What I would say is that we have studied the feeling of unsafety expressed by people who answer the victimization survey, and we have made a link between having heard about burglaries in their area and being unsafe at home. So the idea that the feeling of unsafe...
Wait, you say being unsafe at home or feeling unsafe?
Feeling unsafe at home. Yeah. This feeling has to do with victimization experience maybe by neighbors. So the idea that there would be no relationship with the feeling coming from the media, from what you heard, but far from your house, is not what we have checked with the survey. People just feel because they have a danger they can know, and as the number of burglaries are climbing in France, more and more people know someone close to the house who have been burglared, and the feeling of unsafety goes up.
All right, the feeling that you're unsafe. And is there a correlation in that study? Does that change the way people vote?
No, we do not check with
you
public
don't
statistics
go that far.
how the way they vote. But I would say that the idea that we can express things in political ways so easily, we can jump from crime to politics. Some politics try to do that, and maybe that's the right way to do for themselves. But as someone who tried to understand how things go, I think it's, for example, the 2002 election with the far right at the presidential, the result has been shown as a result of what was going on crime that is not something that is actually proven.
And the far right is, of course, something we're going to continue to follow. By the way, we'll conclude with the latest poll on the far right for those local elections that are coming up in the spring, jumping from 12 to 16%, according to one survey that came out earlier in the week. And of course, the issue of crime and the issue of how it plays out politically, one that we'll continue to watch here in the France 24 debate. At this point, I would like to thank our panel, Thibault de Montbrial, Marie-Cecile NAVES. I also want to thank Cyril RIZK and Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.